heavy tanks are a frontline class and typically should not be in the back line, meaning that you should not be like this guy in this picture. It is also important to note that there are multiple different types of heavies that play differently and work in their own way, so it is important to understand how each vehicle works. When playing in the front line, most of the time you will be facing against other heavy tanks trying to hold the front line as well. So it is important to understand and know where to penetrate vehicles. And it is especially even more important to understand a vehicle's weaknesses and how to use it against them. So today, I will be explaining the basics of how to use every single tech tree heavy tank. Not only that, but I will also be explaining the weaknesses of each heavy tank and how to beat it and how to avoid its weaknesses. Also, make sure to keep note that everything explained in this video will be based on only my own opinion and that you should not expect to immediately become a pro after watching this video, especially since it actually takes a lot of experience and knowledge and skill in order to play with these vehicles very well. It is also important to understand which vehicles work best in certain maps and against certain vehicles, so that you can get used to understanding which vehicles would perform best in your current situation. Your main goal as a heavy tank in the front lines is to get to a good position for yourself. You will be using various positions for each vehicle because each heavy tank's armor works a little differently. Despite having good armor, that doesn't make you completely invincible. So you need to use whatever terrain that you have to your advantage, whether it's a hill or even a teammate's dead body. It may sound simple at first, but remember that not every single heavy tank's armor works the same way. A lot of heavy tanks require you to move around and wiggle your armor, making it tricky and difficult for your opponents to hit your vehicle's weak spots. This is due to the commander's hatch on top of your vehicle. Although even it is a small and hard to hit weak spot, beware that some heavy tanks tend to have a big and very much easy to hit commander's hatch. So it's important to understand how to avoid these weak spots from being hit and penetrated. There are about 5 techniques in the game to avoid your hatch getting hit and penetrated. Number 1, which is simply blocking your hatch with the gun. But keep in mind that this trick only works if the enemy is using heat shells, or if the enemy simply just doesn't have enough penetration to penetrate both the gun and hatch. Another good technique would be to wiggle your tank left and right. Doing this technique makes your vehicle's hatch much harder to hit, but keep in mind that this trick mainly only works against vehicles that lack accuracy, and that doing this technique will decrease your own vehicle's accuracy as well. Another technique that only works for certain vehicles with certain turrets would be by simply just aiming upwards. Doing this will hide your hatches from being seen, which works very effectively. But the main issue with this technique is it forces you to have to look away from your opponents in order for it to work, meaning that you will not be able to return fire when doing this technique. Another good technique would be to use the terrain around you. Doing this allows you to hide your vehicle's hatches and allows you to be able to return fire. Beware though that this technique requires your vehicle to have good gun dispersion. This technique still works even without good gun dispersion, but without it, your vehicle will not be able to return fire. So keep in mind that great gun dispersion in this game is very important to have. For the last technique, this technique is only used for very specific vehicles like E100 or the Mouse. This is due to the fact that their turret armor kind of sucks when used in hull-down battles. This technique isn't used for the hatch, but mainly because of the turret cheeks. These vehicles' turrets tend to be very easy to penetrate and hit when the opponent has enough penetration, or if they use premium shells that give them enough penetration. Anyways, the technique is to angle your vehicle's turret. Basically, you need to angle the turret in a certain way to increase your tank's turret armor. Doing this increases the thickness of your tank's turret, making it nearly invincible. But just like technique number 3, doing this forces you to look away from your opponents, so you won't be able to return fire when doing this technique. Which is why tanks like E100 and Maus aren't recommended in certain maps and are mainly only great in city maps that don't completely rely on hull-down armor. And for one last armor technique, this technique is mainly about blocking damage with your vehicle's hull armor. This technique is called side scraping and is the most basic and original technique ever used in Blitz. And if you haven't understood how this technique works, then that just means you're a total newbie or just simply not doing it right. Keep in mind that this technique is mainly only useful for vehicles with actually good side armor, so vehicles like E100 and Mouse, or even vehicles like IS-7 or the FV215B. I would go over about the many different ways to block damage with the tank's hull armor besides side scraping, but honestly, I don't really feel like going over that stuff, mainly because I just want to get to the actually interesting stuff. Oh, and one more thing. Gun blocking is also considered a way of blocking damage, but I don't really feel like explaining that, so I'll just send a video link I have already made all about gun blocking. When playing with the American heavy tanks, make sure that you remember that hills are basically your best friend. Every single heavy tank in this nation has great gun dispersion. Not only does hills help cover your vehicle's weak spots, but it also gives you an advantage over enemies because a lot of vehicles tend to lack the ability of flexibility around hills. It is also important to keep note that most of these vehicles have good mobility, giving you the ability to reach positions faster than most vehicles. When using an E5, you should always be looking for a good hull-down position for yourself, and use your tank's very accurate and strong gun. This tank is known for its ridiculously good accuracy and high penetration and good DPM. In a 1v1 scenario, E5 normally performs a lot better when against other heavy tanks that are around the same height, and performs better in maps that are filled with hills and mountains, using its gun dispersion and accuracy to its advantage. The tank is also known for being a very good tank for brawling, due to its weak spots that tend to be very difficult to aim at, so whenever it is necessary, if you are forced out of position, feel free to brawl the opponent by face hugging them along with gun blocking them as well, so that you can avoid them from being able to penetrate your weak spots, especially if the opponent uses heat shells. But unfortunately, despite how good the vehicle may seem, it is not as great as a vehicle that you would think it is. Despite its great brawling skills, it is extremely easy to beat the vehicle by simply side-hugging it or by simply just going around it. E5 tends to turn and reverse very slow, meaning that yes, mobility easily counters this tank's great frontal armor. Like, come on, just look how easy it is to avoid this thing from brawling you. You could easily just turn sideways and move back and forth, and the E5 wouldn't be able to turn fast enough. The thing I hate the most about E5 is the modules. The tank tends to get lit on fire and break its engine, and both the driver and ammo rack get damaged too easily, making the vehicle extremely fragile. Sure, the vehicle may have great forward mobility, but sucks when it comes to turning and reversing. And most importantly, the tank's DPM may seem good at first, but you would be surprised by just how dependent this tank's rolls are on RNG, especially when you're forced to use premium only. Meaning that yes, this tank's DPM becomes dog water when it's forced to use premium in order to penetrate its enemy. Also, the tank's armor is completely useless against vehicles that are simply just taller than it, meaning that yes, tanks like Mouse or E100 can easily brawl this vehicle due to their pure height. E5 gives taller vehicles the advantage to easily penetrate its armor without needing to use premium, and also for the kind of heavy tank E5 it is surprisingly light, meaning that yes, even vehicles like IS-4 have the ability to pin it against a wall. Also in general, the tank's armor mainly only works in hull-down maps. This is due to the tank's very weak side armor, so I would not recommend side scraping with this vehicle. But luckily for you, there is more than one heavy tank in the American nation, and the tank we have next is T-57 Heavy. This vehicle has basically the same playstyle as the E5, but this time your turret armor isn't exactly great, so you will have to strike only whenever the moment is right. It is important to keep note that with your tank's armor and clip potential, you should try punishing players for not noticing you, and your vehicle should be played like a peekaboo tank, meaning that you only strike when it's least expected and trade shots with your clipping potential, rolling around at least 1300 damage at best. And sure, your tank's armor may not be as great as the E5, but it is good enough to at least stop a few shots coming at you, thanks to the tank's troll turret armor. The tank has a pretty good gun that is strong enough to perform well, so make sure you use its clipping potential to its advantage and use it to trade damage with opponents. However, T-57 Heavy is not a vehicle I would recommend using in a 1v1. T-57 Heavy is a very team-dependent vehicle, and just like the E5, it also has issues with its modules, but different weaknesses, one of them being the tank's accuracy. Yes, surprisingly, this vehicle kind of sucks when it comes to aiming. Not only that, but the vehicle simply just lacks penetration, but at least the tank's rolls aren't affected too much by Wargaming's RNG. But what I hate the most about the vehicle is its lack of mobility. Surprisingly, this vehicle tends to drive pretty slow for the kind of vehicle it is. It simply just turns too slow and isn't very fast, and sure, the tank does have the ability to brawl vehicles, but it's very easy to penetrate the vehicle frontally, and hull armor is too weak. Luckily, though, there is an actually better heavy tank in this nation that I actually would agree is good. The M6 has very good turret armor along with decent mobility. The gun tends to roll a little high, and the tank's accuracy is actually good, and if you're lucky enough, your clipping potential can sometimes roll over 1,000 damage. The tank's playstyle is actually pretty simple. You play it the same way as an E5, but this time you actually have to be cautious of your hatches, which is honestly pretty easy to avoid. You just simply stick your gun all the way up, and your hatches disappear, making your turret nearly impenetrable. The best part about this tank is you get to play like if you're an E5 and a T-57 Heavy at the same time, because not only do you have good turret armor, but you also have strong clipping potential as well, making it also a great vehicle to use to trade shots with opponents. Plus, the tank's reload is pretty decently fast for the kind of gun it uses. Keep in mind, though, that the hatches are extremely easy to hit and penetrate, so it is important for you to understand how to use the tank's turret better. After all, your turret is like the only part of your vehicle that actually has good armor, just like the T-57 Heavy. Your hull armor is completely trash. And beware that your vehicle can't brawl very well. So if I were you, I would recommend the 3 shotgun instead for just the better DPM. Just like the E5. These vehicles have amazing mobility to help them reach positions faster than most vehicles, but they work a little differently in the front line. Instead of using gun dispersion to its advantage or doing any of the techniques shown earlier in the video, all you do is simply stick your turret out and fire if you spot anything. Now watch as these enemies spot me, and every shot they fire at me fails to pen. Basically, one of the most broken abilities that these two vehicles have is basically the power of becoming practically invincible, just as long as their lower plate is hidden behind cover. They also have this other ability named after them, called Russian Side Armor. Basically, it's side armor that is so bullcrap that vehicles have a pretty good chance of somehow bouncing your tank's side, making them extremely good at side scraping. Anyways, The playstyle of these vehicles is actually very easy to understand. You just simply get into a good position as fast as possible and cause as much problems as you can to the enemy team. IS-4 and IS-7 can be a real menace to your opponents if they are placed in very good positions, as thanks to their nearly indestructible hull-down armor and strong guns with great DPM. Despite their guns not looking very big, they surprisingly can roll pretty high per shot, especially the IS-7. Oh, and of course, these guns have pretty good accuracy when aiming and have pretty high penetration. The major downside of picking this nation is your vehicles lack gun dispersion, so they don't work very well on maps with hills. They mainly perform best in flat hull-down battles, so obviously you would want to avoid hilly maps when using these vehicles. In a 1v1 scenario, these vehicles mainly perform better against taller vehicles or vehicles that lack gun dispersion. This is due to the armor being heavily reliant on angles, meaning that any sort of hill that changes the armor's angle will decrease the tank's armor by a lot, giving you the chance to pen them without needing premium. This is why IS-7 and IS-4 struggle to fight E5, because tanks with good gun dispersion can easily brawl these vehicles frontally. And just like how I have shown in my past videos, can also just simply use the terrain around you to give yourself more gun dispersion to aim lower. So, in my opinion, these vehicles are not tanks I would use in a 1v1, but they can work pretty well against certain vehicles. But keep in mind that these vehicles weren't exactly meant to brawl, and were mainly meant to be fighting its opponents from a distance, taking advantage of its indestructible hull-down armor and DPM. It is also important to keep note that not only are these vehicles good at hull-down battles, they have the ability to play city maps as well, which is basically maps that requires actually good hull armor. This is due to city maps normally not providing any proper cover for your vehicles, meaning that most of the time, you will not be able to rely on your vehicle's hull-down abilities. Side scraping works well with the IS-7, but unfortunately, due to your tank's armor design, doing this will allow opponents to be able to pen your vehicle's upper plate. This is due to the technique decreasing the angle of your tank's armor, making it easier to penetrate its upper plate. So again, remember that tanks like the IS-7 and IS-4 have armor that are very angle dependent, which is why the best technique for these types of vehicles is reverse side scraping, which is basically the same technique but in reverse. This technique works more efficiently and should be used more often, especially in city maps. The major downside is it requires you to have to reposition your vehicle, so it might take a little bit of time to position yourself correctly when performing the technique. But beware. Despite how much more effective this technique is, your vehicle still has weak spots that are very pennable, especially when the opponent equips premium shells, or if they simply just know where to aim. And surprisingly, just like the E5, they can easily be beaten by taller vehicles, and gun blocking will always be an option that will work out for you. So the smartest thing you could do in a face-hug situation against a taller vehicle would be to wiggle your vehicle's hatch left and right, move slightly, turn your vehicle's hull a bit sideways. But even if the gun block doesn't work, I would still recommend gun blocking while wiggling your vehicle's hatch to make it harder to hit. It is also important to keep note that thanks to your short height, your vehicle can also side-hug taller vehicles, making it harder for them to shoot you. I have already made a video all about these heavy tanks, so I'll just bring up what I have already explained in my past videos. Basically, you just need to simply stick with your team, but also stay on certain areas of the map in order to avoid your vehicle's weakness, which is the flexibility to fight on hilly terrain and your bad hull-down armor. Just like how I have explained earlier, tanks like E100 tend to have bad armor in hull-down battles, due to their turrets being very easy to hit and penetrate. So you will have to understand ways on how to avoid this weakness by understanding how your vehicle's armor works. E100 has armor that mainly relies on you to manually angle the vehicle correctly, so you should use hills to increase your turret armor thickness, or by simply angling it correctly. Now you're probably wondering, why are these tanks even good? They appear to have terrible hull-down armor, forcefully making them have to angle their armor, and they are only good in city maps. Well, let's look at some examples. See these pictures? Which vehicle is obviously more easier to pen? Obviously, it's the mouse, but now let's remove the hill. Now, which vehicle is easier to penetrate now? This is exactly why German heavy tanks are actually great vehicles. It's mainly because of their all-around good armor and armor thickness. Not only that, but they are quite literally the only heavy tanks in the game that have the ability to make themselves completely invincible to standard shells, forcing the enemy to resort to using premium in order to penetrate their armor. Now, this wouldn't be an issue if premium shells didn't make your vehicle's DPM worse, because if you didn't know, premium shells do indeed give you more penetration, but their damage will decrease per shot, making their vehicle's DPM worse, meaning that yes, players will tend to take longer to destroy your vehicle due to them being forced to use only premium in order to penetrate your armor easily. So you need to take advantage of that and start learning how to penetrate vehicles without premium. It helps even more thanks to your vehicle's height, making it easier to penetrate most heavy tanks frontally without needing premium. The best part about these tanks is you even get to have a lot more HP than most heavy tanks, taking enemies even longer to kill you and generally makes you a punching bag, or basically just a huge distraction. These vehicles may be big and tempting targets, but beware that these vehicles were made for multiple players to focus on them, and that they were made to survive for a period of time, giving your team the advantage to deal more damage while the opponents are all distracted by you. Basically, German heavy tanks are the kings of city maps because city maps require you to have good hull armor, which most vehicles lack. City maps are what give German heavies the advantage to deal more damage easily. German heavy tanks are known for their good crowd control and do a great job at holding positions in city maps. And thanks to their strong armor and firepower, they often punish players by exchanging shot for shot. Beware, though, that this mainly only happens if the opponent dares to step near its territory. And remember to keep in mind that running right at your friendly German heavy tank can be a great way to escape danger, as they can act as a sudden roadblock. And for a quick tip with side scraping, I would recommend turning your vehicle's turret in this direction. This technique will allow you to spot enemies a lot easier without taking any sort of damage. And most importantly, there is actually a German heavy tank that can fight hull down very well, but that is already explained in this video, so if you would like to understand this vehicle more, you can check out the video I made for this tank down below in the description. Think of this tank as basically a combination of both the IS-4 and E5 combined. Basically, this vehicle is a very overpowered tank when used correctly in a skilled player's hands, and can be an absolute menace if played right. FV215B is known for its all-around balanced playstyle. The tank has very good accuracy, along with very good DPM and gun dispersion. This vehicle also has very good armor design, making it great for both side scraping and fighting in hull-down battles. Just like the IS-4, FV215B has very good mobility, allowing you to reach positions faster than most vehicles. Keep in mind that when using this vehicle, it is important that you play very passively, as you should remember that FV215B is basically your team's main DPM in the front line, so it is recommended to play with this vehicle carefully. and that you should not be sloppy when playing with this vehicle. After all, your vehicle is actually an incredibly important tank to the team. This is mainly because FV215B's gun is very useful in battle. Not only does it have great DPM, but the vehicle also has high explosive shells that have much higher penetration than normal, basically increasing the tank's DPM by a lot. But despite how good the vehicle may seem, it still has problems that make the vehicle not so great, one of them being brawling. FV215B isn't a very good brawling vehicle, meaning that vehicles like E5 find it quite easy to hug the vehicle. So as FV215B, you should be doing anything in your power to avoid brawling with other heavy tanks. You can easily do this with the power of your tanks, good mobility, but unfortunately there are moments where you won't be able to get away from the opponent, so you will have to figure out a way to brawl vehicles with the FV215B. Your vehicle's upper plate is very pennable and easy to hit, especially for vehicles that have good gun dispersion, which is obviously why this tank isn't very great at brawling. So a great way to stop the opponent from being able to penetrate your upper plate would be to gun block it. Or you could simply just angle your hull armor, increasing its thickness, although keep in mind that doing this won't completely make your hull armor impenetrable, and that vehicles with good gun dispersion can most likely still easily penetrate your hull armor whether it's angled or not. Especially if they use premium, this is exactly why I simply prefer to just gun block instead. And keep in mind that just like the E5, the vehicle has a hatch, so just like how I've explained in the beginning of the video, you should use various techniques to avoid your hatch from being hit and penetrated. But to also remember that your vehicle has other weak spots, other than just your hatch. Type 71, by far, is probably one of the most easiest heavy tanks to main in Tier 10, mainly because it doesn't really require much skill to use it. Just like German vehicles, you simply just angle your armor and you're practically invincible. Just make sure to keep in mind that the vehicle's armor mainly relies on angles, just like the IS-7 and IS-4. Also, your vehicle's armor becomes pretty bad when the enemy uses premium shells. But that is exactly what you want. Because just like how I have explained with the German vehicles, premium spamming will only make your DPM worse in exchange for better penetration. The main special ability that Type 71 has is the ability to expose its front wheel without needing to worry about getting penetrated. This is due to the Type 71's very strong side and track armor, meaning that when using this vehicle, you don't necessarily need to side scrape when playing in city maps. Even if it shows gray, the side armor is still very powerful due to the tank's hull armor design, so a good trick to penetrating a Type 71 would be to simply just aim above the spaced armor and aim at the main armor instead. Obviously, the tank's lower plate is a weak spot, but you can easily avoid this weak spot by simply angling your vehicle. Doing this will increase the lower plate's thickness and make it harder to pen. However, doing this will expose another weak spot that your vehicle has just right above the track wheel. Luckily, an easy fix to this issue would be to simply just wiggling your tank's hull. Doing this not only makes it trickier to penetrate, but it also constantly switches weak spots for the enemy to aim at, making it even more difficult to penetrate the vehicle. Despite the armor seeming to be very good, the armor isn't really effective when fighting against players that actually know where to aim. This is due to the Type 71's bad turret armor, meaning that, yes, I would not recommend using Type 71 in hull-down battles and mainly performs better in city maps, especially since the tank lacks gun dispersion. Not only does the vehicle lack gun dispersion, but Type 71 also lacks a bit of accuracy. And despite having extremely high penetration, the tank's DPM isn't very great, meaning yes, you could easily beat the vehicle by simply just having the better DPM. Plus, the tank in general is just really slow and has bad weaknesses that make it too easy to penetrate the vehicle. But this mainly only happens whenever you fight against players that actually know where to aim. There is honestly not much for me to say here, except for the fact that these vehicles basically play the exact same way as other vehicles. For example, WZ-113 plays the exact same way as the FV-215B. The main and only difference between the two is just armor profile and gun. Yes, WZ-113 is basically FV-215B, but the gun just isn't as good. And for the BZ-75, you would be very surprised, but the vehicle plays exactly like an E100, just like an E100. The vehicle's turret armor completely sucks when the enemy equips premium. The main difference between the two is, again, both the gun and armor profile is mainly what makes them different. With the E100, at least you can increase its turret armor by using hills or by simply angling the turret in an impenetrable angle. Meanwhile, with the BZ, when enemies load premium, you quite literally can't do anything about it, mainly because the vehicle can't angle its turret like how E100 does, and that doing so would only make it even easier to penetrate your turret. Also, in general, the vehicle just has a lot of weak spots that you can penetrate without needing to use premium. BZ-75's gun uses HESH shells, which is basically your normal high explosive shells, but with more penetration. This ability gives you the power to increase your vehicle's DPM by a lot if you can manage to HESH penetrate your opponents, but keep in mind that HESH does slightly less damage than your original high explosive shells. And most importantly, HESH shells are only useful if you are capable of penetrating the enemy's armor, which in face-hugging or basically brawling situations, HESH isn't very helpful, especially since it does not give you higher penetration than your standard shells, meaning that HESH shells are mainly meant to help deal more damage when the opponent isn't focused on you. AMX-50B has got to be by far the most goofy but fun tank to play. Basically, you just hide 24/7 and only strike when the time is right, and that's basically it.
Enemy armor is damaged. Enemy is hit. Enemy is hit. Main gun hit.
All you really need to understand is that your vehicle has like 0 armor. But what you do have is an annoying gun and very great mobility, along with heavy tank HP. You should always wait until the moment is right for you to move when you push. You should only push whenever it's safe to do so and fire all 3 shells dealing around 1,300 damage total and get away with it thanks to your vehicle's great mobility.
Enemy armor is damaged. Penetration. We kill him.
Just like the IS-4 or any fast heavy tank in general, you should get into position as fast as possible and then just be patient. Unfortunately, you will have to wait and let the vehicles that actually have good armor spot and hold the line for you. Basically, you shouldn't rush and kill yourself. But you should position yourself at a good hiding spot and let your teammates go before you so that they can spot enemies for you so that you can get a better chance at knowing when to push and when to fall back. Make sure you understand when it's a good time to push, because right after you empty your clip, you will have to immediately turn around and fall back into cover due to your vehicle being an easy target. After you've successfully ran away, you will wait to push until your gun is done reloading. Unless some dude decides to follow you, you can just simply kill him quickly with your clip potential. European nation by far has basically the best heavy tanks out of all nations, in my opinion. Not only are they all extremely good at all hull-down battles, but they are all also good at brawling and don't really have much weaknesses to them, making them basically all-around balanced and strong vehicles. When using 60 TP, basically just imagine it as an IS-4, but with a 152mm cannon. 60 TP also has the ability to basically remain invincible just as long as the vehicle is hull down. It has the exact same playstyle and weaknesses that IS-4 has. So 60 TP shouldn't be very difficult to understand. 60 TP is also a very good tank for brawling, thanks to its good armor profile and very big gun that allows you to gun block opponents very easily. And for the KrAnVaGn, I have already made a video all about that vehicle, so if you would like to understand the vehicle better, I'll send the video link down in the description below. And for the Rinoceronte, it's basically played the exact same way as the KrAnVaGn, except this time you're faster and your gun works differently. Also, make sure to keep in mind that your vehicle's turret armor isn't very strong when the enemies use premium, so you will have to actually use hills to angle your turret in order to increase its thickness. And for the VZ55, it's basically the same playstyle as the E5, except this time you unfortunately don't have that good of gun dispersion. But what you do have is a 2-shot autoloader that gives you the ability to out-trade shots with opponents. So it's basically a combination of these two tanks. Oh, and also this vehicle can actually side-scrape pretty well and has spaced armor on its turret, making it good against heat shells. So, from basically everything we have learned today, we have understood that every single heavy tank uses their armor differently and has a different playstyle. It is also important to understand which vehicles work best against each other, and it's important to understand which vehicles work best in certain maps, and most importantly, how to use them all and what purpose they serve to the team. Make sure you keep this information in mind and use it, as it can help you understand certain heavies better and get a general idea of how to use them correctly. And most importantly, as a heavy tank in the front line, make sure you do whatever you can to keep your team protected. And even if you were to go down, make sure you don't go down without a fight. After all, you are basically the team's main defense.
Also make sure you subscribe or else you die.
To the 1 from the 1 to the 3. I like good pussy and I like good trees. Smoke so much weed you wouldn't believe. And I get more ass than a toilet seat. 3 to the 1 from the 1 to the 3. I met a bad bitch last night in the D. Let me tell you how I made her leave with me. Conversation and here.